looking at Ed's work and the sincerity that he put into it, a lot of modern cinema that tries to make bad movies or tries to encapsulate that bad movie vibe fails almost instantaneously at the first hurdle, in my opinion, at least, because of the fact that it doesn't have that heart or that sincerity behind it.
Right.
90% of the movies that come out nowadays that are, considered bad movies are people who either are purposely trying to make a bad movie, and as such they just the standards are on the floor. They're just kind of like, we'll film anything and shove it together and people will buy it because it's a bad movie and we're crazy, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Or it's one where the like I say, the bar is on the floor with it, and they just kind of go, well, it's supposed to be a bad goofy movie, so we can get away with not having a particularly polished script, or not having cast members who are professional actors, or not having the best CGI. And I don't know, to me at least, I find having the outlook of it's okay to cut corners, or worse still, just going, I'm going to make this movie, and then not doing any production work at all and just barreling headfirst into filming a load of random bollocks and then stitching it together.
Like Bigfoot versus DB Cooper.
Dakota!
Oh, come on, guys. It's not that bad, is it? I mean, you know.
I've only seen Dan's review of it, so I can't speak from experience of having watched it, but from what I saw when
it's DB Cooper, it's Bigfoot. Come on, we were there. It was fun. Good times.
I tell you what, I'll send it you back.
I'll send it to Kurt so he can get the full experience.
Yay.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys' thoughts on that kind of thing is, but I find that bad movies, especially Ed's work, it can be the visibly naffest production on a technical level that you've ever seen, but if it's got heart and sincerity behind it, I'm drawn more to it, and I'm more accepting of it, and even enjoy it more than some film where some stoner has basically just gone, I'm gonna make this film with my flip phone and some friends, and we haven't got a script, and we haven't got an idea of what the plot is, and we're just filming it day by day, and we're going to shove it out on Blu-ray for $25. And it's productions like that, and there's a lot of them. I mean, at the minute I'm covering the Camp Blood movies, and I'm on Camp Blood 3-2. It got so bad that they had to make 2 Camp Blood 3s because the first one was apparently... Oh, that is a hornet's nest in and of itself. The first Camp Blood 3 was made by the original producer of Camp Blood, who sold the intellectual property rights to a company who then made a second Camp Blood because they thought that the Camp Blood 3, that the person who originally owned the intellectual property to it, wasn't as good as what they could produce. And then they got the guy who made Feeders to come and make Camp Blood 3.
Oh, shit.
Which is a bit like, say somebody I don't know, throws a ball really, really far, and somebody else goes, that was stupid, I can throw it further than you, and then they immediately shit themselves. That's the level we're talking in terms of a quality drop. With so I've gone off the point, but what I'm trying to say, guys...
What are you trying to say, Dan? I'm confused.
What I'm trying to say, guys, is, do you believe that it's possible to make a bad movie on purpose, and that you can just go and make something that people will love, that is a Samurai Cop, Miami Connection, room level, so bad it's entertaining type production, but with none of the heart to it, just kind of you go out and you just shoot a bunch of stuff and put it together? Do you think it's possible to achieve that kind of level of infamy by just doing it?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think movies are, we see with modern Hollywood, it's just kind of like an assembly line production. I think you need that heart. If it wasn't for heart, something like Star Wars wouldn't have got made, or something like, Halloween or The Thing or Dawn of the Dead would have gotten made. You have to have heart. You have to care about what you do. You have to care about your craft. And I think that when you say, "Oh, I'm just gonna make," like that example you had about some shithead taping it on his Motorola Razor, you have to you just can't half-ass it. You have to whole-ass it, and you have to just give a shit. And I don't think I think like the guy like Tommy Wiseau had heart as much as he probably could. I think the guys who made Samurai Cop did. I know YK Kim did when he made Miami Connection. You just have to care. And I don't think people who make like the Sharknado movies, or people who make like the Asylum stuff, or the people who make sci-fi originals, if there's still a thing anymore.
I think it's all
those
Asylum.
People, okay, so that's awesome. But yeah, but some of the sci-fi originals, they had heart. They just a lot of them were just shit. You have to care. And I don't think that these people care. I don't think Neil Breen cares. I don't think that Derek Savage cares. Oh crap, he's gonna come kick my ass, isn't he?
Oh, Derek Savage can eat a bag of dicks.
Thank you. I don't think Uwe Boll cared when he made bad movies. I think
he's gonna kick your ass, man.
I'll kick his ass.
I have every faith in Glenn Danzig. I believe he absolutely cared when he made Verotica.
That's awesome.
But yeah, you have to care, and I don't think that modern bad movies have that heart anymore. I don't think that they just want to pump this shit out because they know they can try to exploit people like us who love enjoyably bad movies, and people who love B movies. And sometimes they get us and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, that's true.
With their voodoo hoodoo witchcraft.
I agree with you, Kurt. I do think, and please forgive me because I'm in a tangent a little bit. The thing with movies is that they are so subjective. Like we kind of, between the three of us, I think we're all pretty well versed in the way of B movies and schlocky, like the classic. Like we can look at these movies and go, oh god, it has this, it has that, it has the other thing. To your average viewer that might stumble across something like this, look at like Blood and Honey, the Winnie the Pooh one, for whatever that was. Like that didn't get great reviews, but there were still people that came out of that theater going, oh my god, this was amazing. Or Cocaine Bear, or Cocaine Shark, or the upcoming Cocaine Coon. There are those. It's such a the line of what constitutes a good bad movie has drastically shifted, and the ability to be able to tell what is a really good bad movie versus like what is a bad movie is so out there and subjective to depending on your ability. Like I would say, what, to me a terrible ass movie is The Mummy from 2017, but most people look at that and go, well, what the hell are you talking about? You're crazy. You also like things and things like that. So but no, as far as with whatever it is, whether it's a bad movie or a good movie, like you said, there needs to be passion. There needs to be something more than a paycheck behind it, because then you're going to look at it and go, yeah, this thing is a piece of shit. But I do think with a lot of those, even when you're on like Piranha Con versus Octopussy, 17, The Return of the Suction Cup, I mean, to some extent there is someone behind that does give a shit. But having said that, the further you get away from the original one of any of those movies, so the original Sharknado compared to Sharknado 6, is going to have a lot more heart than the sixth one. So yeah, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say. I agree with you. It's like Birdemic versus, from what I understand about Birdemic Seahawk, he took they like weird, awkward walking, and they like CGI birds. You toss all of that at it without that passion for the initial, to want to make the movie beyond just, well, they liked this, I'm going to shovel them more of that shit.
But we like it because it's bad. We don't like it because it's good.
Right, exactly. Or because, well, it's like, and this is not quite the same thing, but with Rocky Horror, that was it was a cult classic because of where it was shown and what it offered to the table. They tried to do that exact same thing with Shock Treatment. They went in trying to make a cult movie, and you can't do that. These things happen out of it's random when it happens.
Right.
So yeah, I apologize. I kind of tangented all over the place and probably made
No.
no goddamn sense.
No, I completely agree with your point. And another thing I would add to what you've just said is I think the sheer volume of films that come out now by, non-studios, by really small studios, by individuals, has made the chance of finding something genuinely bizarre and entertaining infinitesimally smaller than the times previously, because like you say, previously, before, either you worked in shot on video and you would only ever be seen in the state that you produced your film in, where the one video shop agreed to stock it, and then it would disappear off the face of the earth until Vinegar Syndrome releases it, or TerraVision. Or you were a actual filmmaker who somehow managed to swing a distribution deal. Your film got into the theaters for a couple of months, maybe at most, and then vanished off the face of the earth again until Vinegar Syndrome or AGFA or TerraVision picked it up. Nowadays, there's probably easily at least 100 new bad movies being released, if every day, if not every other day. And the ability to kind of dig into that genre to find anything good is getting smaller and smaller with every year that passes, because the more time that passes, the more people get more tech savvy with computers and editing, and the more people go out and make movies. I mean, a good example is in trying to find genuinely obscure bad movies that are entertaining, things like White Glove Massive and Gatwick Gangsters, which were two films that I stumbled on completely, in the wild, and they completely blew my head off, because you could, again, they had that level of sincerity behind them. They were two filmmakers who genuinely thought that they were making the next like gritty urban Ken Loach style kitchen sink drama film, and the next British staple gangster movie respectively, and both of them are absolutely not those things.
I mean, Dan has a total crush on champagne from Gatwick Gangsters, so
Oh yes, absolutely.
I would also add, just real quick, in terms of like finding, like, the way that we look at these movies. I think a lot of the way that they survive too is kind of something that we look at. So like the bed that eats, what is it? The bed that what is it?
Oh, Deathbed.
Deathbed. Thank you. Yeah, like Deathbed. The fact that survived because some random guy like ran a dub of the movie when it was at the distributor's office. It got passed, through the underground across Europe and across the world, and then it randomly showed up at a film fest in, I think it was San Francisco. Like, if that movie had just been out in the public eye, it was aware and people knew about it and stuff, I don't necessarily think that it would have the cojones that it has for being such a great, good, bad movie,
Yeah.
It's kind of like what makes MST3K good beyond all the basic stuff is the fact that it has survived through tapes, through, people passing on all of this stuff for so long.
Absolutely. That's what I love. That's what I love about Mystery Science Theater is it created a base of people who just absorb these movies.
Right.
These, it's movies like, Deadly Mantis or Beginning of the End, these giant creature features, or like The Incredible Melting Man, or let's see what's on this one I got here. Side Hackers, The Unearthly, The Atomic Brain, Manos, The Hands of Fate. Yeah, it created an entire group of these people who crave creature features and these ridiculously low budget movies. And that's why I love about Mystery Science Theater and Film Crew and Cinematic Titanic and Riff Tracks. Yeah, that's why I love it. It introduces a group of people, or it introduces people to a movie that they probably wouldn't have seen otherwise. I probably would never have seen Samurai Cop if it wasn't for Riff Tracks, or I wouldn't have seen like East Meets Watts if it wasn't for Cinematic Titanic, or the Wild War. It was the Wild Women of Wongo if it wasn't for the Film Crew. Like, or Manos for Mystery Science Theater. It's like these movies that are now my bread and butter, the movies that I love. And you know, there are people who make very good low budget movies. There is a gentleman from Fort Wayne that I just got familiar with who makes movies. His name is Eric Pennycoff. The gentleman who owns the record store I go to introduced me to his work.
Cool.
One of his movies got released by Arrow, called The Leech, which I haven't been able to find yet, but he has one on Tubi that I just reviewed. But yeah, there are people who make these movies work on lower budgets, and you know, it's just a very small crew. And there are people who make good movies that are, have these small crews, but like most of these people who do this anymore oh, we're gonna try to make a creature feature or something like that, and it's like you don't just do that anymore. You know, you have to, there are a lot of creature features that you can watch. There's a lot of bad horror movies like Manos the Hands of Fate, or Octoman, or whatever, the movies that we absolutely love.
No, absolutely, completely agree. And yeah, it is one of those things where, I think the broader, bad or cult movie community as a group of people tend to be able to help separate the wheat from the chaff more often than not. There's a lot of drive to try and get those films that are so bizarre or strange shown to as wide an audience as possible, and that's a great thing, because you have things like the archiving community that can be very, very restrictive, because obviously, if you have the one copy of a film and there isn't any others out there, you've got something very expensive, so you don't want to show it or lend it to anybody, because it's basically your retirement fund. But I just love the outpouring that people who enjoy these kind of bad or cult movies have, where the first thing they want to do when they've seen something that is genuinely captivating is get as many eyes in front of it as possible, which is so charming to kind of see. And I really do wish that we had more of a, because I mean, another thing as well that's kind of plagued at least the Hollywood system now more than anything is the fact that there's such a reliance on algorithms and marketing feedback groups and things like that to try and pull people's interests towards very specific movies and very specific. I mean, if you look at the charts are a great example of it. The music charts, like every single song that's on the chart sounds more or less the same kind of vibe, and that's because they got the industry down to a process now that completely excludes anybody like Lynch or Ed Wood or John Waters or Coleman Francis. I mean, in the latter case, that's probably a good thing, but the end result of that, though, is that you end up in a situation where you're basically they're almost cast out, and these people have to kind of a lot of these people aren't advertisers, they aren't able to do their own marketing, and that means that a lot of these films will kind of maybe release and then never get seen by anybody who can kind of champion them or hold them up.
Which is exactly why I think we all are big believers in film restoration. Is I think something we're all big on, and solely for the fact that movies like Bride the Monster or Glen or Glenda or Plan 9, they need to be seen. Just because they didn't make money, people think, well, your movie didn't make money, it must stink. It doesn't stink. It's just audiences weren't ready for it. Right. I think back to your point, Dan, I think that, like, you talk about John Waters or Ed Wood or David Lynch. I think if people like how they studied the demographics, and they did the same thing in the 70s before like Star Wars came out. If people like David Lynch or John Waters or Ed Wood made their movies today, if they made John Waters made Pink Flamingos in 2023, it wouldn't get past the screening room, because the executives are like, we can't market this, or Eraserhead, you can't or market Eraserhead, because it is such a insane movie that you just can't, your general audiences aren't going to go for it. And I think that's a big problem with Hollywood right now. It's just that we like you said, it's down to a science, and that's not good.
No. Like
the marketing for Cocaine Bear I mean, they did market decently, but not like they did for something like Fast X or for The Flash or for any of these big superhero movies, because that's what makes them money.
Movies, but don't you think too that with that in mind, like, a wide audience isn't going to be something that's going to go see Cocaine Bear. Like most people are going to say, no way in hell, it's not family friendly. It's all of these terrible things. I mean, I look at things like, and this isn't, please forgive the example because it's not the greatest example, but something like Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's such an outside the box movie. And you do have companies that do specialize in those kind of movies, or Fresh, or Malignant, or look at the amount of movies that have come out in that respect. They are considering what Hollywood is, and not that A24 is the end all be all of those kind of movies, nor should it be. But I do think that there is a way for those to be seen, and the people that are in the know, and there's not enough of them, admittedly, but those movies do get made, and they do, whether it be through crowdfunding, both for good and for bad, to be honest. But you do still get those movies that are made, and they're successful because of social media, because they're known how to, they take a guerrilla marketing approach to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I that is a very valid point. And there are studios like A24 who do take these movies that probably something like Warner Brothers or MGM won't touch, because they're owned by, Bezos and Amazon own MGM, and Zaslav owns Warner Brothers. So they're not going to touch those movies because I don't think that they see the big picture about it. I think that they see, we need something that quick, marketable, and something that gives us a lot of money opening weekend, and then slowly either tapers off or whatever. But there are movies like like Malignant, which is again basket case.
Exactly, hugely basket case.
Yeah, and they do make money, and they do bring a lot of money in because of guerrilla marketing, and that's one of the things one of the things I like about film Twitter. Besides, sometimes the discourse is kind of funny, but but the kind of marketing that we're talking about, is guerrilla marketing on Twitter or on Facebook or on whatever that people are on anymore. If Ed was alive today and making these movies, they would be, film Twitter might be like, we'd be talking about it like we talked, we talked about Plan 9, like we talked about Cocaine Bear, or talked about, Malignant or Barbarian, or some of these other modern movies that, the bigger studios don't touch, but some of these smaller, medium-sized studios do. Like A24, or like Blumhouse, or, some of these other ones.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, I was going to be honest with you, looking at how Ed kind of worked with film, I always envisioned he would have gone down the Ray Dennis Steckler route of filmmaking.
Oh God.
Which is like, he would have worked in film until he could get his hands on tape, and then he would have just gone down the SOV route, like right the way up to the end. Because when you consider how quickly he wanted to turn ideas around and how many ideas he'd get on a regular basis, I think the idea of having like a handheld video recorder that would let you make a film like on your terms, and it was $80 for a reusable tape, we'd have no masters. All of the films would basically be like third generation dub. But I absolutely am firmly of the belief that if Ed had lived into the 80s, he would have embraced shot on video as a way to get his films made, come hell or high water. May God have mercy on us all.